In 1974, a commissioning editor here at the BBC wrote in this memo about the first script of Fawlty Towers, "I'm afraid I find this one as dire as the title. It's a sort of Prince of Denmark of the hotel world, a collection of clichés and stock characters that I can't see being anything but a disaster." I've discovered that that script editor is no longer claiming his BBC pension, which means he's either passed away or is living somewhere in eternal shame. Because what he so nearly denied us was a show that in its relatively short life transcended anything of its genre that had previously been made and still outranks other sitcoms a generation later. Of 20 reasons for claiming Fawlty Towers as Britain's best sitcom.
Yeah, there's an unpredictability. Yeah, like anything might happen.
Well, actually, I'm not sorry. I mean, you come in here just like that, and well, to be perfectly blunt, you have a very good time at our expense. I mean, I think you know what I mean. I mean, you have had a very, very good time, haven't you? Well, not here you don't. Oh, no. Thank you, and good night.
Basil's rudeness is of Olympic proportions.
What are you doing? Will you come back?
I'm going out blind.
No, just listen to it, you old fool. You want to run the place? No, I just want to see. Shut up, then. You stupid retard!
It's just incredible. And you really cringe. I mean, still, 20, 30 years on, you cringe at that level of rudeness.
You wouldn't care for kippers?
Oh, fine, kippers, yes, thank you.
Toast, butter, marmalade.
Yes.
When the guest says he wants breakfast in bed, and Basil says,
Rosewood, mahogany, teak.
I beg your pardon.
What would you like your breakfast tray made out of?
I don't really mind.
Are you sure?
this is the guest who dies later on in the programme. It's horrible to watch. It's so awful because Basil is supposed to be in the service position.
If you can remember to sleep with your mouth open, you won't even have to wake up. I'll just drop in small pieces of lightly buttered kipper when you're breathing in the right direction, if that doesn't put you out.
You could see really what a bastard he was. I mean, that's the thing about Basil. He's an absolutely awful human being.
And he rang me up during the second series at one point and said, "I've got a real problem in 2 weeks' time." I said, "What?" He said, "There's a character in it." And he said, "I've never been so rude to anybody in anything I've ever done before, in any of my work." And you know what a bully is. And it's about him physically. I mean, I call him an ape.
We got enough bananas this week, dear?
And he said, "Unless it's somebody I know, I won't be able to do it because I'll be too embarrassed."
Do you have a guide to Torquay?
A guide? Oh dear, I think we're out of them again.
Do you want to look at this one? I've got it in town.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it's nice to have that kind of person staying, isn't it? Professional class, educated, civilised. Got both ends of the evolutionary scale this week, haven't you?
He's quite a horrible person. I mean, he's up there with Average and Blackadder, of course. He's the daddy of them all, really. He's the daddy of the dysfunctional.
You do want him to rip into someone. He's a good sort of weapon to turn on into stuck-up posh people.
I asked for a room with a view.
Deaf, mad, and blind. This is the view as far as I can remember, madam. Yes, this is it.
When I pay for a view, I expect something more interesting than that.
That is Torquay, madam.
But it's not good enough.
Well, may I ask what you were expecting to see out of a Torquay hotel bedroom window? Sydney Opera House, perhaps? The hanging gardens of Babylon? Herds of wildebeest sweeping majestically?
Don't be silly. I expect to be able to see the sea.
You can see the sea. It's over there between the land and the sky.
His character was inspired by a real hotelier from Torquay.
We were filming the second series of Monty Python when we first, when we stayed in the Glen Eagles Hotel in Torquay. I think we were filming stuff on the beach. Probably Scott of the Sahara, I would have thought.
For me, it was great fun because I think it was probably one of my favourite roles that I portrayed. Vanilla Whore, I believe she was.
Monty Python were hardly a run-of-the-mill booking for a certain Torquay hotelier.
And now for something completely different.
Donald and Betty St. Clair ran a hotel called the Glen Eagles, which was in the Wellswood area of Torquay, very nice residential area of Torquay.
On getting the brochure, you would think you were going to a traditional four-star hotel. with everything that would entail. But in fact, you wouldn't expect to go into a 4-star hotel and there not be a receptionist, there not be a night porter, the bar to close at 9 o'clock.
And we got back about 11:30 or something. And when we got back, the proprietor was in his dressing gown and slippers, looking at his watch and watching us go upstairs to bed, you know, like as if we were naughty boys who've stayed out too late.
One day we were all at dinner, and Terry Gilliam was eating as Americans do. That is to say, they cut the meat like this, and then they cut it all up, and then they put the knife there, pick the fork up in the right hand, and spear the meat.
Sinclair sort of said, excuse me, but in this country, sir, we use the knife and the fork, like this, and literally demonstrated, you know, leant over him, cut the food with knife and fork, and sort of demonstrated how it should be done.
And on another occasion, Eric Idle left his briefcase.
He didn't really need it, so he asked the lady, the receptionist, to just hold on to it, keep it till we got back. And we came back later, and he said to her, could I have my briefcase, please?
The hotel owner said, I put it out right at the back because it might have been a bomb.
Eric said, well, why a bomb? And Mr. Sinclair said, well, we've had some staff problems recently. So he thought somebody was coming back to blow up his hotel.
And I think at this point I said to Mike, I can't stay in this hotel. I've got to leave.
He was the rudest man I've ever met. He was wonderful, and all the other Pythons wouldn't put up with it.
But it was only later we heard that John was planning something.
A couple of years on, when husband and wife John Cleese and Connie Booth were looking to write a sitcom, Mr. Sinclair and the Gleneagles Hotel sprang to mind.
This extraordinary man was very, very big in my memory and Connie's, and within a very short time, we'd figured out that was where we wanted to set the hotel.
I didn't realise right away that Fawlty Towers was modelled on the Gleneagles, but as I watched the episodes, I could see things that I could have imagined would have happened at the Gleneagles.
Bomb scare!
What?
There's been a bomb scare. That's why he was searching in your bag. He didn't want to alarm you.
May I?
Well, I don't really...
Just one moment.
And more to the point, I remembered things that happened at the Gleneagles that I could imagine happening in Fawlty Towers.
We'd been warned about a certain tree out in the garden we had to be very, very careful of. Well, we were doing some building work, and we'd been there quite a few weeks. We put the window in and everything else. When I looked out the window, I thought, where the devil's all that smoke coming from? So I dashed out, and one of my lads had lit a fire right under this damn tree. And when I looked at it, all the leaves are all hanging down. It's a beautiful tree, and I thought, oh my God, what's he done? So Mr. Donald Sinclair came, and he went mad for a minute, and he said, you bloody builders, you've killed my tree. And he was down on his hands and knees in the drive, bashing his hands on the chip-ins.
You never get it right, do you? You're either crawling all over them, licking their boots, or spitting poison at them like some Benzodrine puff adder.
Would you make some ham sandwiches, please?
Look, I'm
Dr. Price.
Oh, of course. Yes, one moment.
Never have let you write that advert. Fancy putting no riffraff.
But when you're presenting haute cuisine, you don't want the working class sticking its nose in it.
For him to put an advert in the paper inviting people to gourmet night and say no riffraff sums him up.
The key to Basil is the snobbery. And therefore we thought that in the first episode, someone who was pretending to be a lord and who wasn't would take advantage of Basil.
Would you put both your names, please?
I only use one.
You don't have a first name.
No, I am Lord Melbury, so I simply sign Melbury.
Go away. I would find it a little easier to cope with some of the cretins we get in here, my little nest of vipers, if I got a smidgen of cooperation from you.
What?
Hello, dear.
What are you doing?
I'm kissing you, dear.
Well, don't. Sybil and Basil is a sort of potty marriage, isn't it?
I am going to make you regret this for the rest of your life, Basil.
Well, fair enough, I suppose, but
Basil!
Very painful, which is why it's so funny.
Have a nice day, dear. Don't drive over any mines or anything.
I remember saying to Prue pretty early on in the first show that this was a woman who could paint her nails and make love at the same time. And she developed 99% of the character herself quite easily.
I certainly believe that Sybil came from a professional catering family. I mean, I thought that her parents probably had a boarding house in Eastbourne, and that she met Basil when he was having a drink with his demob money, and I think the fact that he was posh certainly attracted her.
I remember going home and saying to Connie, what do you think about the way Prue's playing it? And her saying, well, it's not what we thought of.
I think I need something more topaz-y for my colouring.
I think it may have been my idea to make her a little bit less posh than he was, and he and Connie weren't sure that that would work.
Her tight, shiny skirts, her bouffant hair, high heels, and this disparaging, calculated dominance over the male sex.
Dear me, what have I done now?
That and that.
Not to worry, I'm putting it right.
You think I'm joking, don't you?
Oh, don't smile.
Why are you smiling, Mr. O'Reilly?
I like a woman with spirit.
Oh, do you? Is that what you like?
I do.
Oh, good.
Now, Sybil, that's enough.
Come on, then, give us a smile.
And when Basil overreached, she'd just go, Basil?
Basil?
Basil? And you knew that that was overreaching.
Do you really imagine, even in your wildest dreams, that a girl like this could possibly be interested in an ageing, brilliantine stick insect like you?
Because of the welter and blizzard of laughter, you forget that he is a very, very unhappy man.
You seem very jolly, Basil.
Jolly?
Yes, jolly, sort of happy.
Oh, happy, yes, I remember that. No, not that I noticed, dear, no.
And there are the profound moments which are really moving when, for example, he says to her...
We used to laugh quite a lot.
And she said, yes, but not at the same time, Basil. And then he's sitting on his own and he says, yeah, that should have been a sign, shouldn't it? What was that? That was your life, mate. Goodness, I'm feeling emotional saying it, actually, because, you know that clip will be played at Fawlty's obituary, and it's a very powerful line.
Where's Sybil? Okay. Where's Sybil? Where's the bill? Okay. 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 What do you want? Okay. Okay.
Okay.
See.
See. Really, Andre, he's wonderful.
This Basil's wife. This Basil. This smack on head.
The catchphrases like "K" and "I know nothing" weren't designed as that, of course. They were just lines, occasional lines, but they somehow caught on.
There used to be certain BBC radio comedy shows that consisted entirely of catchphrases. You know, you'd hear the door open and
okay.
Someone would come in and say, I don't like cauliflower, I prefer the peas. So we got very fed up with it. But sometimes I think we realized that I am from Barcelona kind of got funnier with repetition.
I am from Barcelona.
He's from Barcelona.
I'm so sorry, he's from Barcelona.
He's immensely thoughtful, extraordinarily kind man, very considerate, and rather quiet, almost introverted.
I thought, I'll ask if I can wear a moustache. And I thought, no chance, because John's got a moustache, and they won't have two guys with moustaches. So I went up to John Howard Davies and asked him, is it possible to wear a moustache by any chance? He said, yeah.
Yes! I think Andrew's moustache was important because it made him look younger. He was middle-aged by the time he came to play that part. Most people thought he was much younger.
And then you put that moustache on him, and he goes, ding! And this energy explodes. It's something just comes through.
And then you've got to imagine the hair is black. And then I would say things like, I know nothing, senor, or, okay, all those kind of things.
Oh, you are so cute.
Manuel occupies a place of being both cuddly and annoying, especially to the diseased imagination of Basil Fawlty, because he has never learned any English.
There is too much butter on those trays.
No, senor. What? Not on those trays. No, sir. Uno, dos, tres.